Picture this. You're doing the math on a house you want to buy. Your salary is $75,000. The house cost $425,000. The mortgage calculator says you'd be paying $3,200 a month. And somewhere in the back of your brain, a little voice whispers, "This is impossible." Here's the thing, that voice is right. Your grandparents bought their first house when it cost 2.5 times their annual income. You're looking at houses that cost 5.7 times yours. The math didn't just get harder, the math broke. And what's wild is that everyone keeps acting like this is normal. Like you just need to save a bit more, work a bit harder, maybe skip the avocado toast. But the numbers tell a completely different story, one that most people haven't fully grasped yet. There's a specific moment in American history when the relationship between what we earn and what housing costs completely shattered. And I'm going to show you exactly when it happened, why it's only getting worse, and what it actually means for your financial future. Here, I share financial insights that cut through the noise and help you understand what's really happening with your money. If you've ever looked at house prices and felt like you're going insane, like the math just doesn't add up anymore, and you want to understand what actually happened to the American housing market, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button if this helps you make sense of the chaos. Now, before we get into the mechanics of how we got here, let me paint you a picture of what we're actually dealing with. You're scrolling through Zillow at midnight because that's when you have time. You see a house listed for $520,000. It's fine, not amazing. The kitchen is from 2003, there's carpeting in the bathroom for some reason, and the backyard is basically a concrete slab. But it's 3 bedrooms and it's only a 45-minute commute to your job. You run the numbers. With 20% down, that's $104,000 you definitely don't have. Your monthly payment would be around $3,800. That's more than you currently pay in rent. That's more than your car payment, insurance, groceries, and utilities combined. And you haven't even factored in property taxes, which in some states add another $800 a month. You close the laptop. You'll try again next year when you've saved more. Except next year, that same house will cost $565,000. This is the loop millions of Americans are stuck in right now. The savings goalpost moves faster than you can run toward it. Here's what actually happened. In 1970, the median home price in America was $23,400. The median household income was $9,870. That's a ratio of 2.4 to 1, meaning the average American family could buy the average American house for about 2.5 years of their gross income. Fast forward to 2024, and the median home price is $417,000. Median household income, $74,580. That's a ratio of 5.6 to 1. Let that sink in for a second. Housing didn't get a little more expensive relative to income. It got more than twice as expensive. And here's the kicker. This isn't because houses got twice as big or twice as nice. The average home size has actually grown, sure, but construction costs haven't doubled relative to wages. What changed was everything else around the house. But here's where it gets really interesting. This wasn't a smooth, gradual change. There are 3 specific inflection points where the ratio exploded, and if you understand these moments, you understand why you're priced out. The first inflection point was the early 1980s. Interest rates hit 18%. Sounds like that would make housing cheaper, right? Wrong. What it did was freeze the market. People who already owned homes couldn't afford to sell because they'd have to give up their low-rate mortgages. New buyers couldn't afford to enter. Housing construction slowed to a crawl. And when rates finally dropped in the late 80s and early 90s, we never caught up on the supply we lost during that freeze. The second inflection point was 2008. The housing crash, yeah, but not in the way you think. Everyone focuses on the crash itself, the foreclosures, the underwater mortgages, the financial crisis. But the real damage came after. Construction companies went bankrupt. Skilled tradespeople left the industry and never came back. Zoning laws got even stricter because cities were terrified of another bubble. We went from building 1.5 million housing units a year to barely 500,000, and we stayed there for almost a decade. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but the crash made houses cheaper, right? Temporarily, yes. But here's what most people completely miss. While housing prices were down, wages were also stagnant or falling. Unemployment was high. Credit was impossible to get. So the people who could have afforded houses during the crash, regular working people, couldn't get loans. The people who could get loans were investors with cash, and they bought up everything. Which brings us to the third inflection point, 2020 to 2024. Interest rates dropped to historic lows. Everyone who could qualify for a mortgage rushed to buy or refinance. People who already owned homes locked in 2.5% to 3% mortgage rates. And then rates shot back up to 7%. Those people with the low rates, they're not selling. They physically can't afford to. If they sold their house and bought another one, even at the same price, their monthly payment would double because of the rate difference. This created what economists call a lock-in effect, but I think of it more like a traffic jam. Imagine everyone on the highway stopped moving because they're all afraid if they exit, they'll never get back on. That's the housing market right now. There are people living in 4-bedroom houses who want to downsize, but won't because it would mean giving up a 2.8% mortgage for a 7% one. There are people stuck in starter homes who can't move up because the monthly payment gap is too insane. And here's the part that will blow your mind. The shortage isn't actually about the number of houses. America has roughly 140 million housing units for 130 million households. There are enough bedrooms. The problem is they're in the wrong hands, and nobody's moving. In 2019, about 5.3 million homes were sold. In 2023, just over 4 million. That's a 25% drop in inventory movement, and it's creating an artificial scarcity that's driving prices into the stratosphere. But here's where the story gets even more frustrating. The inability to afford a house isn't just about the sticker price or the interest rate. It's about every single adjacent cost that's also exploded. Home insurance has increased by 38% in the last 5 years in some states. Property taxes in Texas went up by an average of $2,400 per household in a single year. HOA fees that were $150 a month in 2015 are now $480 a month because the buildings are aging and repair costs have skyrocketed. So even if you somehow scrape together the down payment, even if you get approved for the mortgage, the actual cost of ownership is wildly higher than the purchase price suggests. I spent an embarrassing amount of time analyzing this last year, and I found that the hidden costs of homeownership, the stuff beyond the mortgage payment, now average about 47% of the base payment. If your mortgage is $3,000, expect another $1,400 a month in taxes, insurance, maintenance, and fees. That's $52,800 a year just to keep the lights on in a house you supposedly own. Now let's talk about what this does to your psychology, because this is where it gets dark. When you can't afford to buy a house, you don't just lose the house. You lose the ability to think long-term. You start making different career decisions. You don't take the risk of starting a business because you can't afford to lose stable income when you're perpetually trying to save for a down payment that keeps moving further away. You delay having kids because you can't imagine raising them in a 1-bedroom apartment, but you also can't imagine affording a house big enough for a family. Homeownership used to be the forcing function for wealth building in America. It wasn't that houses were great investments. They historically barely beat inflation. It's that a mortgage was forced savings. Every month, you paid down principal, and after 30 years, you owned an asset worth several $100,000. Rent doesn't do that. Rent is just gone. And here's something that will probably surprise you. The gap between renting and owning has never been wider. In the 1990s, the monthly cost of owning a median-priced home was about 10% more than renting a comparable place. You paid a premium for ownership, but you got equity in return. Today, in most major metros, owning costs 60 to 80% more per month than renting the same house. That's not a premium anymore. That's a penalty. You're being punished for trying to build equity. This fundamentally changes the math of wealth building. If you're spending an extra $1,500 per month to own instead of rent, that's $18,000 a year that could have gone into index funds, which historically return 10% annually. Over 30 years, that's the difference between having $3 million in investments versus maybe $800,000 in home equity after you account for maintenance, taxes, and transaction costs. The religion of home ownership as the path to wealth, it's breaking down in real time. But here's what most people mess this up, and I see it constantly. They hear this stuff and think, okay, so I'll just rent forever and invest the difference. Except they don't actually invest the difference because rent isn't fixed. Your landlord raises it every year. That $1,800 apartment becomes $1,950, then $2,150, then $2,400. And unlike a fixed mortgage, there's no end date. You're not paying it off. You're paying it forever with increases forever. The trap isn't renting. The trap is being priced out of ownership and having rent eat up so much of your income that you can't save enough to invest meaningfully. You're stuck in the worst of both worlds, paying someone else's mortgage while being unable to afford your own and not having enough left over to build wealth through alternative paths. And this is the thing that makes me genuinely angry as someone who works with people's money every day. This didn't have to happen. Housing scarcity is a policy choice. We've made it functionally illegal to build dense, affordable housing in most American cities. We've zoned 75% of residential land in major metros for single-family homes only. We've created a system where existing homeowners vote to block new construction because it might lower their property values, which traps the next generation outside the gate. In Japan, the federal government controls zoning, not local neighborhoods. If there's demand for housing, they build it. Tokyo has 14 million people, and housing costs half what it does in San Francisco, which has 800,000 people. It's not because Tokyo has more land, it's because they allow housing to be built. The American system isn't broken by accident. It's working exactly as designed, for people who already own property. Your home appreciating by 8% per year feels great if you bought in 2012. It's a disaster if you're trying to buy in 2025. We've turned housing into an investment vehicle instead of a place to live, and the side effect is that an entire generation is locked out. Here's where you have to make a decision about what this means for your life, because the math isn't going to magically fix itself. If you're waiting for home prices to crash back to 2019 levels, you need to understand. The people who own homes now have 3% mortgages. They're not selling unless they're forced to. And if rates stay high, they won't be forced to. The inventory shortage will continue. Prices might plateau, they might dip slightly in a recession, but they're not crashing back to affordable. Which means you have 3 real options. Option 1, you move, not to a different neighborhood, to a different city or state where the ratio of income to housing cost still makes sense. There are still metros in America where you can buy a house for 3 times your annual income. They're not glamorous, they're not where everyone wants to live, but they exist. And if homeownership is truly your priority, geography might be the only lever you can actually pull. Option 2, you redefine what homeownership looks like. Maybe it's a condo instead of a house. Maybe it's a townhouse with an HOA you hate. Maybe it's a fixer-upper that needs $50,000 of work you'll do yourself over 5 years. The dream of buying a move-in ready single-family home in a great school district as your first purchase, that's a boomer luxury most millennials and Gen Z will never access, but a different version of ownership. Still possible if you're willing to compromise. Option 3, you accept that renting might be your reality for longer than you planned, and you get ruthless about investing the difference. You automate transfers to index funds. You max out retirement accounts. You build wealth through assets that aren't tied to a piece of land. This isn't giving up, it's adapting to the field you're actually playing on, instead of the one you wish existed. What you can't do is nothing. You can't keep renting, spending everything you make, hoping the market will fix itself, and assuming you'll figure it out later. Because later, you'll be 45, still renting, with no equity, no retirement savings, and even less flexibility than you have now. The system is rigged, yeah, but your life is still happening inside that system. And the decision you make in the next 6 months about how you respond to this reality will compound over the next 30 years, just like interest does. Your future self is watching this moment. They're either going to thank you for being strategic, or they're going to wish you'd started building wealth through whatever path was actually available to you, instead of waiting for the path that used to exist. The math broke. The relationship between income and housing cost shattered, and it's probably not coming back in your lifetime. But your ability to build financial security, that didn't break. It just requires a different strategy than the one your parents used. Start building that strategy today, because your future self is counting on the decision you make right now. Trust me, they'll thank you for it.